Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday service talk from Sunburst Sanctuary. My name is David. The topic today is Contentment is Achievable. If we each just take a little bit of time to reflect within ourselves, we can probably all identify times when we have felt more content than other times. And sometimes those points of high contentment are tied to outside influences. Maybe we get a new car, or we fall in love, or we win the lottery. There's a number of outside influences that could give us contentment. And in some of those cases, that contentment can last a lifetime. But many times the contentment that we experience from outside forces can lose its appeal after a certain amount of time. And so the contentment that we're talking about today is a deep contentment that comes from within our very own soul. And it's the connection that we have to the infinite divine spirit that created everyone and everything and sustains all life, every minute of existence. And this is something that is available, this experience of deep contentment, something that is available to each one of us, no matter what our circumstances are. And today I would like to talk about some different circumstances and the impact of contentment, or the impact that they can have on contentment, or not have on contentment. It just seems like so much of being content is a state of mind. It lies literally within our hearts and within our minds. There's a quote that goes along with today's topic, and it's from Seneca, who was a Roman philosopher. He lived in the 1st century A.D. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. A few years ago, I was introduced to a singer-songwriter about 5 years ago. His name is Malcolm Holcomb. And he's from the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. And I went to see him play at a local concert because a friend of mine was putting on his concert series, and he said, "You should really come and see this guy. He's very unique." So before the concert, I was out on the front porch of the space where the concert was going to take place. And there was a guy out there who, honestly, I thought he was a homeless man who had just wandered up onto the porch and was talking with one of the guys that were working on the sound or the something having to do with the presentation. And so I go inside, and when Malcolm gets introduced, it's this guy, this really disheveled-looking guy that I thought literally was a homeless guy. And I was like, oh wow, I sure had that wrong when I saw him get up there. And then he launched into some of the most unique and amazing music that I had ever heard in my life. And pure Americana, right out of the hills of Appalachia, real soulful, and a lot of storytelling. And you could say not a lot of refinement, but that probably wouldn't be accurate, because within its own genre, it is very refined and very creative. And Malcolm would close his eyes and rock back and forth in his chair. I thought his chair was going to tip over. And he would just throw everything he had into this music. And it was very impressive. And so recently I was watching an interview that Malcolm was doing with the guy that did that music series. And he said something really profound. And he gave credit to somebody else, which would be his nature, because he's a very humble guy. But he basically said, any day where my gratitude is greater than my expectation is a good day. And I thought, wow, that is a gem. And I didn't have to get it from a Roman philosopher. I didn't even have to get it from someone who I would consider a spiritual teacher, although they have many gems as well. But it reminded me that the most beautiful things in life can come from the most unexpected places. And to have a deep, deep gratitude for whatever it is that you have in your life can really set the stage for an abundance of contentment in your life. So I was thinking about how to present an idea of achieving contentment rather than just talking about, well, everybody should just be really grateful all the time. Well, it doesn't always work that way. We all have ups and downs in our lives. And I would say all of us, to a certain degree, have some days where we are more content, or where we are expressing and just naturally seeing the gratitude that we have in our life, all the beautiful things that we have that maybe on other days we take a little bit more for granted, but some days we see them and we really, really appreciate them. And it fills our hearts. It fills our hearts with joy to just be able to see and feel appreciation for all of the gifts that we've been given in our lives. Other days, our expectations might outrun our gratitude. And we're thinking to ourselves, well, why can't this person be on time? We have to be at a certain place by a certain time. And we can get really frustrated. We can get frustrated with our own inability to do a simple task that we think we should be able to do, but we're having a really difficult time with it. Or just personality conflicts that we have with our friends, and they can kind of overshadow how we're feeling that day. But we do have the ability, even on days like that, to impact the level of contentment that we can achieve on that day. And so I wanted to introduce something that I was introduced 2 years ago. And any of you that are familiar with the writings of Stephen Covey are going to recognize some of the material I'm going to use today. But he talked a lot about the positive impact of being proactive, and inversely the negative impact of just always being reactive. And I believe that we all have proactive qualities within us and reactive qualities within us. He talked about it more in terms of there are people who are proactive and there are people who are reactive. And proactive people take control of the things around them that they can control, and they improve their situation. And reactive people, they wait more for the conditions around them to improve their situation, and they don't really take any responsibility. I think that we all have a mix of that. I don't think it's just you're either proactive or reactive. I think that we all have room to grow in these areas. But he developed a little chart. It's not really a chart, it's just a circle that he called the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And I'm hoping that people can see this and just get an idea of what it looks like. But you'll see that the circle of concern around the outside here is much larger than the circle of influence on the inside. All right, I'll put this down for right now. So, we all have things in our lives that we are concerned about. We are, maybe concerned about our health. We're concerned about our friendships. We're concerned about the relationship with our significant other. We're concerned about our pets. And these are all things that really kind of fall into the inner circle, the circle of influence, because those are things, for the most part, that we can have an impact on. If we are not feeling healthy, we can maybe make some lifestyle changes where we eat better or exercise more. If we're concerned about our pet and we think maybe there's a problem, we can take the pet to the vet. It goes on and on. The things that we do have some control over and that we can have influence over. But then there's other things that we might be concerned about that are still things that we can have some influence over, but if we spend a lot of time on them, it's kind of a waste of time. And so I'm going to say a couple things that are not things that are a waste of time, but for perspective, you can see how they're different than taking your pet to the vet. And one thing is maybe the global warming issue, or the national debt, or nuclear war, or just the political system at large as we see it. Now, do we have any influence over those things? We absolutely do. And we have the ability every 2 and every 4 years to vote, and to vote in legislators that will help, change things in what we would consider a positive direction. And everybody has a different idea of that, and that's okay too. We don't necessarily have that much influence over what's going on around the world in terms of nuclear proliferation. We see that our government and other governments work together to try to have controls over that, but then there's also the possibility of rogue nations that can do things that are really outside of our influence. We can be really concerned about the state of politics, and we can spend so much time talking about the state of national politics, and we don't really have a lot of influence other than our ability to vote, or maybe sign a petition here and there. But we find ourselves a lot of times in our lives kind of running around on this outer circle of concern and talking about, well, why don't the people in charge do this? Why don't they do it this way, And and not really spending the time in our circle of influence to make whatever changes we can make at that level to impact these bigger issues. And so Stephen Covey would categorize the circle of concern as more of a reactive paradigm, and the circle of influence as a proactive paradigm. And in fact, if you focus your energy in that smaller inner circle of influence, and you just go about the work of doing the things that you can do to have a positive impact on whatever the environment is. It might be at work. You see, the company I work for, it really needs a lot of help in a certain area. I'm going to go to work in that area, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. Now, other people in that company, they might be standing around the water cooler all day long complaining about the problem. But the person who is proactive goes in, rolls up his sleeves, and goes to work on himself and then others around him to try to help change the problem that needs help, or the area that needs growth. I think if we think about that, just that in itself, if we think about spending our day focusing on things that we have influence on and not focusing on things that we don't have influence on, then we're going to, I think just within that, we're going to have more contentment in our lives, because we're going to be doing something positive and proactive that will make a difference. So when I was thinking about this topic, and I was thinking about Malcolm's statement, any day where my gratitude is greater than my expectation is a good day, I thought about how gratitude really, I felt, kind of is similar to this circle of influence, and expectations is more similar to the circle of concern. Because if we have unrealistic expectations that we spend a lot of time thinking about, then we're dragging ourselves down, we're letting ourselves down, we might be letting people around us down, because we're not working on the things in our smaller circle that will get us to the point where we can do those greater expectations. Now, this is not to say that people should not have expectations, because expectations are like dreams, and dreams are projections, and projections are what grow us into the future. But it's different to have expectations that are achievable and that we can put energy into immediately, is different than spending a lot of time kind of running around on this big outer circle, just talking about all the things that are wrong with everything in life all the time, and never getting down to the work that we can do internally. So I have another graph here, or another circle, which basically just shows the circle of influence and the circle of concern. And it shows on the outside, with the circle of concern, it shows expectations. And on the inside, with the circle of influence, we see gratitude. And basically, what this is showing is just, if we spend more of our time in this inner circle of influence and gratitude, we begin to build a more positive attitude about life. And it is positivity that really changes the world a little bit at a time. each person who develops a positive attitude towards themselves, to have a loving embrace of their own self, and not to be always judging themselves as not good enough, unworthy of whatever they already have or they think that they would like to have. Well, once we have a good, healthy attitude toward ourselves, we can then have a really good, all-encompassing, healthy, positive attitude of those around us. And we can go into interactions with one another without any expectation, but rather just an openness to what is the possibility that Divine Spirit has for the two of us or the group of us to synergize our energies together and come up with dynamic solutions to the problems that we face in our lives. I was thinking about a couple of kind of real simple examples of concern and influence. And I was thinking that if I had a physical coming up sometime in, like, let's say in 3 weeks, and I knew that there were certain things I had to do for this physical. And one of them was I had to do 50 push-ups. Well, right away, my mind would be really running around on that circle of concern, thinking, I'm not sure that I can do 50 push-ups right now. I'd like to think I could, but I'm not sure that I can. So the first thing would be to see if I can, and then when I found out that I couldn't, what am I going to do next? And if for the next 3 weeks, all I do is worry about it, then when the time comes for the physical, I'm not going to be able to do the push-ups. But I have the influence. I can go in and I can make a choice to every day do 10 push-ups and then do 12 and so on, and build myself up. And that's what taking personal responsibility or being proactive is about. We live on a ranch here at Sunburst, and it's that time of year when the fields need to be prepared before the rains come so that we can get the seed in the ground. And if the guys that do the farming, if they just sat around and just talked about, God, we really got to get those fields ready, but they never really went out and prepared them, then it wouldn't get done. And these are the things in life that we can have influence over, and we can really make a difference. Right. I wanted to talk a little bit also about a gentleman who many of you are probably familiar with. And his name is Viktor Frankl. And Frankl was an Austrian-born man who, he was a neurologist and a psychologist, and became an author. He wrote many, many books, and he was a university professor, I think at the University of Vienna, and he did a lot of lecturing around the world. And he developed a therapy that he called logotherapy, which was basically healing through meaning. And that if we have meaning in our life, it gives us the ability to overcome the problems that we have in our life that might seem unsurmountable. If there's a big yes waiting at the end of the work that we do, something that's saying yes to us, this is something worth doing, then it really gives us the ability to throw all of our energy and our support into that venture. Well, Viktor Frankl came to these realizations when he was a prisoner in the concentration camps in World War II. He was in 4 different camps over 3 years, including Auschwitz, which was pretty brutal. He lost his entire family, except I think maybe one sister, in the camps. But when he was in the camps, he went through a transformational experience where he realized that even though his Nazi captors had taken all of his liberties away, basically looked at him and treated him like he was subhuman, and all of those around him, he realized that they could not take what he called the final freedom away from him, which was his ability to make a choice about how he reacted to these influences that were being put upon him from the outside. And I think he's the first guy who started talking about this dynamic idea of that there's a space between stimulus that we are always getting from the outside and response, what our response is going to be. And that space is as big as we want to make it. So if someone says something to us that maybe is hurtful to us, they might not even mean it, but it might be hurtful to us. It might trigger something in us. We have the choice before we respond back, maybe by lashing out or being accusatory of them. We have the choice to pause and to stretch out that space between stimulus and response as far and as wide as we want to make it. And in the case of when something happens and we become angry, it's always good to take a pause and stretch that space out. But all day long throughout life, we are faced with making decisions. We're faced with the stimulus from the outside and whatever our corresponding response is going to be to that. So he said, and others have agreed since, that ability to choose our response to whatever the stimulus is that's coming at us in life is truly the maybe the only thing that we really have control of in our lives. And you'll have to reflect on that and meditate on that for yourself to see if it rings true. I know that it does for me, because I can see the difference in the outcomes in my life depending on how much I practice this idea of taking a pause before I just respond. And some days I don't do that. And those days are not as good as days when I am more reflective. I practice more discernment in my responses to people. And it's all driven by a desire to just have the best relationships that we can have with each other, and to not damage the relationships that we have by throwing negative energy back at someone, but rather come up with ways to frame our responses in a positive way. So I think that really fits into this idea of having gratitude and having it in perspective with what our expectations are, and using those things, working those things together. Maybe we can think about this circle of concern and circle of influence in our lives. We can reflect on, well, where do I spend most of my time? Am I being reactive or am I being proactive? Am I spending a lot of time worrying about things that I have absolutely no control over? Or am I expanding my circle of influence by working on the things that I can control and that I can have a positive impact on. Of course, for those of us who are watching this video, for my friends that live out here at Sunburst, and for the many, many people who come here to visit over the years and come to retreats, we put a lot of emphasis on sitting meditation, where we take the time to just pause. We take a daily pause, at least once, hopefully a couple of times a day, where we just sit and we try to receive inner guidance. And we try to prepare ourselves for having the best responses to the whatever the unexpected influences that could come our way every day that we live. And when we do that work, we put ourselves in a better position. And I'd like to take the time now for us to all sit together and have a quiet meditation, and to reflect on the idea of we're taking a pause in life from the stimulus that is coming at us constantly, and we're going to just try to receive inner guidance. And when we come out of our meditation, it will give us the opportunity throughout the rest of the day to have positive responses. So join me now for a quiet period of silent meditation. I hope everyone had a nice meditation. I had just a few closing thoughts before we go into our song that will be after this recording. I wanted to read a couple of things having to do with building an abundance of gratitude. From the Buddhist teachings, we take care of the future by living happily in the present moment. The present moment and future are comprised of the same substance. What we do right now sets up our future. What we dwell on right now with positivity in the present moment sets up a future positive life and picture that we can step into. Buddha said, "Stop, my child. And if you are successful at stopping, we have arrived. We are home." It means we don't feel the need to run anymore. We run all day, and many times even in our sleep. From the Bible, the Christian teaching, be still and know that I am God. These practices that are consistent in all major faiths, this practice of praying deeply, of having reflective meditation periods, they are the practices that are showing that we are proactive in our quest for divine illumination, for spiritual growth. And everyone who takes the opportunity to just take a pause feels that positive effect throughout their lives. Our hearts play a big part in our spiritual growth. And we sometimes talk about the heart in stages of illumination. And many times when we start out in life, and this isn't true for everyone, we have what could be considered a restless heart. It's hard to slow ourselves down, even to take a pause between stimulus and response, but we are just reactive. Our heart is restless. But through practice, through the desire to slow down, to become more reflective, we begin to develop a steady heart, a heart that can at least sit quietly and be at peace. And further development brings us to the devoted heart, where that peace that we feel becomes a devotion to Divine Spirit, and we engage it in our spiritual path, whatever it might be. We devote the energies of our heart, the divine love connection that we have, we devote it to Spirit and to one another, that everyone might feel that devotion and everyone might feel that peace. And then, through the efforts of the devoted heart and the steady heart, we come to the enlightened heart. And the enlightened heart is the heart that is expanded and has awareness of the entire cosmos and has a conscious connection with the divine creator. And this is our ultimate goal in meditation, to have that connection consciously while we still are alive in these bodies. That we don't have to wait until we leave these bodies to know our divine friend, the soul of the universe that we've all come from. But we can experience that connection directly while we're still alive in these bodies. And that's why we're here. And it's a joyous quest that we find ourselves on. But it's not just about the goal. It's not just about the end. It's about the journey as well. And it's through the things that we do daily in the journey that bring us to these higher stages of an enlightened heart. This video is going to be posted on December 20th, Sunday, December 20th. So I'd like to take the opportunity to wish everyone out there who's viewing a very happy holiday season. Whatever your faith may be, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever your faith may be, whatever the holy days are that you might be celebrating at this time of year, we here at Sunburst send our warm regards and our love and support, because we all celebrate together. We all celebrate the beauty of this world and all that we have to be grateful for. And if you don't have a particular path or a spiritual direction that you feel your life is in, or even if you just feel like, well, I don't necessarily even believe in God, I haven't had that proven to me, so I can't really say that I do. Well, that's okay too. We're all in this together as humanity, and we extend our warmest regards to everyone, no matter what their views are, because it's through working together and through pausing together and responding with love and kindness towards each other together that we make this holiday season special, and that we have a positive impact on the entire planet. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'll be signing off now. Peace be with you.
Oh, listen to life's sweet song. Can't you hear how she longs for perfection like in days that are gone? So sweet and oh, so sad. So sweet and oh, so sad. Father, you're melting us all into one bright, shining, blazing sun. And we've all had the blues much too long, so we're all going back home to you. Oh, big wheel wheels are turning round all around us without a sound, and they're spinning within us too. Oh, I can feel the love, can't you? Oh, I can feel the love, can't you? Father, you're melting us all into one, bright shining blazing sun. And we've all had the blues much too long, so we're all going back home to you. I'm going home to the sea of love, yes, of love. Won't you come on along with me and ride the stars above, and ride the stars above. Father, you're melting us all into one, bright shining blazing sun. And we've all had the blues much too long, so we're all going back home to you. Yes, we've all had the blues much too long, so we're